I have been planning for probably 2 years now to do a video just on luxury because I think people just don't understand what luxury is versus what is a necessity. Now, the video I was planning to make would probably take about an hour and I would go through the entire history of blah, blah, blah. But for this video, I just want to concentrate on one thing, and it's going to blow your mind because you're going to say, no, that's not a luxury, that's a necessity. What is it? Credit. Credit is a luxury. Brief history. Credit was something that they gave to rich people because they knew rich people were good for it, right? And if they weren't good for it, there were problems. Because normally the rich person was the person that owned the company in the town, right? They owned the such and so, the hardware store, the factory, the mine, you know. So if the rich person didn't have money, that meant like, you know, probably a few thousand people didn't have money. something was up. But that's how it operated. The rich person could go to the store and say, put it on my tab. And it was based off of the reputation of the actual rich person. Put it on my tab. And so the rich person would not walk around with money. They would say, put it on my tab. And then when the tab accumulated, they would go to the house of the rich person and the rich person would pay them there. Or they would go to the bank or whatever. It was all very convenient. And that was the whole point of credit, that it was convenient. Well, about the 70s, I want to say, at the end of the 60s, they figured out that they could give peasants credit on a mass scale. I'm not saying that credit wasn't introduced beforehand, but up until that time, credit wasn't, I want to say the end of the 60s, the 70s, the early 70s. Now, there was a American Express, and it was not a credit card. It was simply a 30-day card. I'm sorry, I'm missing my brain right now. And you had to pay in full in 30, and that's exactly how credit really worked. It wasn't the thing that you have here where you have this balance, and when you get through paying off the balance, you could have financed an entire house, right? Because you're paying the minimum. Why am I, and that's a good segue into the next point, why am I even talking about this? You are paying the minimum, and they love black people. They came out and said this in 2008 when they were having all the hearings about the credit, and the credit card companies wanted to up the interest rates. And they made this big pretense. Well, in the meantime, just like the O.J. Simpson trial, all the news media wanted to report on these hearings that they were having on Capitol Hill with the credit card companies. And they would just say the nastiest stuff. And they said, oh, they love black people because black people are unsophisticated with money. Do you all hear me? You know, I'm not mad at them. If they're telling the truth, they're telling the truth. I would rather hear the truth than just hear some sort of, you know, just a plain insult or shooting air up my butt, you know. However, that saying, blowing smoke up my butt, I don't know. I wasn't born in America, or I was born in America. I didn't grow up in America, so I don't know your sayings. So they said the credit card companies love black people. They are unsophisticated with money. And this is a very precise terminology. Unsophisticated in money, meaning you have no idea outside of 1 + 1 = 2 what money means. If somebody tells you that money is all a confidence game and that the actual paper actually has no value whatsoever, and it's all based on the confidence of the population in it having value, most black people won't even understand that. They couldn't, if you gave them an entire week to explain what that meant, they couldn't come up with it. Even if you said that they could look on the internet and check out any book in the library, they still couldn't understand it because the concept is just the very scratching the surface of sophisticated. Wells Fargo was put on actual trial, for decimating an entire neighborhood. They went in to a black neighborhood where most of the people had paid off their house or were very close to it. It was a mature neighborhood. That's what you call a mature neighborhood, where the people are no longer, it's not kids buying new houses. It's old people who own their house free and clear, right? They went into the neighborhood and said, oh, look at how much money you can have, and look at what you could do with all this money. Why don't you take out this loan? And come to find out that they were writing interest rates. Now, interest rates were still at 3 or 4%. Still, they gave those people a first mortgage because they had already paid everything off at 13, 15, 19%. 19%. All black people. You want to understand why I made my channel? You want to understand why I promised myself when I was a child, 7 years old, that I would grow up and be a sophisticated black person? And I said I will not be an athlete, I will not be an entertainer, because my people need somebody like me instead of another Michael Jordan or whoever was big when I was a kid. They made those people sign a mortgage at 19%, and not just a mortgage. They made them sign an ARM loan, adjustable rate, first year interest only. By year 2 and 3, they cleared out the entire neighborhood. And the black employee, got up on the stand and they said, my manager said, get them Negroes, they don't know nothing about money. Keep calling over and over and over. I don't care how many times they say no, we want them to say yes. Just keep, they don't have a clue about money. They destroyed the entire black neighborhood. That's why I do what I do. And everybody says, well, it's just a matter of them finding out. You know what? You don't know what you don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I do a lot of new things. Maybe you don't know. I do a lot of new things. Or let's say I'm going to go buy something. Do you know what I say to the salesperson? And it's probably intimidating as hell. I say, educate me on this market. Most people don't walk up and say that. Get me up to speed on these products so that I can be conversant in these products. I am not going to purchase anything from you until such time as I know so much about it that I know it like the back of my hand. And you have 15 minutes to do that. Now, here's the deal. A good salesman is going to do that regardless. My roommate and I went shopping for speakers. This guy took us from $30 speakers all the way up to $1 million speakers, educating us all the way, architecture, engineering, sound engineering, everything. Speakers, worked on commission. I said, you know what? I wish everybody was like you. He goes, I get paid for a living. I said, well, technically they all get paid for a living. He said, you know what I mean. They're working on minimum wage. I don't work on minimum wage. If I sell these speakers, if I sell any speakers, I get a portion of those speakers. It goes right into my pocket. I go, yeah, I know. And of course, he has top of the line speakers at his house. Sophistication. Now, all of these ARM loans, 19% interest. If you listen to me, half those people listen to me, none of that would happen. Why? First of all, they would have all owned it free and clear, and they would have never touched their home after that. It's really disheartening. And who doesn't listen to me? My own mother. May she rest in peace. Took out a second mortgage on our house during the crisis. At the height, I think it was like at 5% or 6% or something like that, at the height of the crash. And then all of her properties, they called the loan, meaning they wanted cash on the loan for all of her houses. How ridiculous is that? That's what they can do that. That's what they can do. Why? She's black. That's why. So many white people say, oh, there is no institutional racism. Are you crazy? So somebody who owns 4, 5, 6 houses, owns a few businesses, all of a sudden gets all of their loans called out of the blue. Is there something wrong with the bank? No. Are you receiving your payments? Yes. So why are you calling loan? Because we can. Because we can. Unless you are so sophisticated with credit, I am going to recommend that you never, ever buy any big ticket item on credit. What does big ticket mean? Anything over $500. I bought a professional level touring bike, commonly referred to as a 10-speed bike, right? With the thin wheels, thin seat. And I trained with the people who were training for the Tour de France. You know, I trained at my level. I didn't train at their level, which meant we would start out at the beginning. I would go several miles. I don't know how many miles. I would go halfway to where they were going. I would wait for them to get back, and then I would come back with them. Now, going halfway, I could keep up. When they came back, I could keep up. And little by little, I got further and further and further down the way. That's not the point of this story. The point of this story is I bought that bike on credit. I was here in Las Vegas still paying off that bike. And that was years later. So when I say big ticket item means over $500, I literally mean that. Because you could put something on there that's just $1,000 and end up paying $20,000 because you're paying the minimum. Credit is a luxury. I'm going to ask if you are unsophisticated in credit, specifically credit. It is a luxury. I want you to leave it alone. How many college kids, first day orientation, arrive there, and who's there to greet them? Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citigroup. Here's a credit card. Why? Because they know, or they're under the assumption that college kids are unsophisticated. Now, hopefully, they have parents, and parents are paying off their school if they don't have loans. And so if push comes to shove, the parents will pay off the credit card too. And if they're really lucky, in 4 years, junior will have an engineering degree, and he makes about $100,000. And who was there from the beginning? Bank of America. We gave you your first credit card. Why don't we upgrade you to the platinum card? Right? There you go. It's a luxury, and I want you to see it as a luxury. Just like you don't need a Rococo chaise Louis XIV in your living room. And if you don't know what I just said, that's exactly my point. Unsophisticated. That is a luxury, right? You can literally go get some milk crates and sit on those and put those in your living room and have a nice time, right? Sew you up a nice cushion and put it on top, you're fine. You don't need a $250,000 sofa. You don't need that. That's not a necessity. Luxury versus necessity. Credit is a luxury. Thank you for watching the Shikama Live Show.